everybody can be a trailblazer.
And he was one of the ones that came out of the projects that was doing something that he loved.
The only place in the state of Texas that blacks can play on the municipal golf course is right here.
Thanks for tapping in with us for this special edition of Beyond the Sport. I am Victor James, coming to you from Mary E. Branch Gym at Houston-Tillotson University. So excited to bring you sports stories for the culture, starting with a legend on the hardwood, Retha Swindell. Here's our own living legend, Dr. Nicole Cross, with her story.
And she sent it to me. She said, "This looks like it might be you." And I said, must be the socks. I'd have a shirt that has living legend, you know, like, okay, I guess they're trying to tell me this, but I see it as just day to day, taking advantage of what I had.
Retha Swindell is slow to call herself an icon in women's basketball, but let's look at the facts. She is still the all-time leader in rebounds for the Longhorns, near the top in scoring, but her lasting impact comes from being the first black woman to play basketball at Texas.
This was from 2019 when Teresa was inducted, and she asked me to write the story for the souvenir book. Like my parents, you know, I just try to just lead by example, and I hope they take all the good. As children, you look at people around you, and you tend to imitate what they do. My parents were good examples of us seeing them and us doing what they did, and being able to take advantage of opportunities that they never had.
Beulah and William Swindell raised 10 kids, including triplets, in a segregated Center, Texas. It was where Retha learned how to handle any racism she would face.
We were always like, "Why didn't you tell us this?" Well, we didn't want you to be angry. You know, so they've always protected us so that we could get the best out of our life. And then this is my mom. This one is Dad's first cousin. This is kind of Elma. She was my, I think, 4th grade teacher. My community was, of course, black, and all of my teachers were black, and they were my neighbors. Where I grew up, it was still an option whether to integrate or not. And then I think there was a judge in Tyler that says, "No, you're going to integrate." It was actually January of 1970, I was told that it was official.
Center High School integrated years earlier. Swindell came behind her older brother, Charles, who played basketball and exemplified how winning could bring people together.
Everybody likes to win, right? So it's hard to fight when you're winning. So I think it made integration a little easier in that respect. And that was the first time I played basketball in a team setting. And other than that, I played in the yard with my friends, my sisters, my brothers. And it was half court. It was 3-on-3 at each end. And I played on the defensive end, so I never shot the ball. Right, this is the high school, my senior year. I was on the cover. This is what the size of the books looked like back then.
Swindell would go on to make the All-State All-Star team and set national records in the triple jump. This caught the eye of another trailblazer, Texas basketball coach Rodney Page, the first black head coach of any sport at UT.
He said he saw me at the state track meet, and that's when he kind of imagined me running down the court.
Retha joined Page on the 40 acres in 1975, making the dean's list as a freshman.
In my dorm room, that's the room where the police came. The campus police, we had something with them. They made a big deal out of what could have been because of who we were.
Paige was surprisingly fired that spring, making way for future Naismith Hall of Famer Jody Conrad. They would help the Longhorns reach as high as number 4 in the AP poll during Swindell's senior season. She finished her career with more than 1,700 rebounds and nearly 1,800 points, which is still 8th all-time in Texas history.
This is just the jersey from Texas. And so they traded me to Milwaukee. Milwaukee folded. I became a free agent. So I ended up with the Dallas Diamonds. I never really cared about points. I wasn't really excited about rebounding either, except I knew that was something that needed to be done. It wasn't about the stat sheet.
That attitude took Retha all over the world as the first Longhorn to make the USA Select Team, and made her a first-round pick in the 1980 Women's Professional Basketball League draft. The WBL folded 2 years later. Swindell then began her career as a teacher and coach.
That's how I met the now famous Teresa Weatherspoon. She's assistant coach for the Pelicans now. Teresa's signature on that one. From being in the WBL, we did have a contract, a TV contract. WGN covered us. So, that was the first league to have a viable contract.
Now, retired from teaching, Swindell dedicates her life to educating people about how women like her laid the foundation for women's basketball. No matter how humble she is, her impact on the game and her family is undeniable.
So we are her now because she's so humble and she don't talk. And we do have bragging rights and we gonna brag.
My thought process is pretty simple. It's not trying to be a trailblazer. Your best becomes the foundation for somebody else.
That's it. Oh, yeah.
Swindell came up at the beginning of Title IX. More than 50 years have passed, and while there's been some progress, we still have a ways to go for Black women in sports. The Women's Sports Foundation is working to make sure that the reach of Title IX affects all of us.
When we talk about equity in sports, that we're really intentional in the conversation and explicitly naming Black girls and Black women in this conversation, because otherwise what we will see is just progress for women broadly, but oftentimes not enough progress for Black women and girls. Women of color are woefully underrepresented in the coaching ranks, in the athletic leadership ranks in colleges. And that's important because we need Black women as role models, not just for Black girls, but for all people in sports.
Plenty more to get to on this special edition of Beyond the Sport, starting with a visit to H-Town, where the 3rd Ward is still honoring one of its sons. George Floyd grew up in Houston's 3rd Ward and went on to play sports at Jackie Yates High. His murder hit closer to home for folks in that community, including Lions basketball coach Eddy Barlow. Barlow grew up with Floyd in the Cooney Helms projects. We linked up with him to see how we're still honoring the man he remembers as Big G.
You can't even, get over one incident because there's so many going on, and they back to back, which is crazy. But every day I leave this school, man, I see a mural on one of these buildings before I go home, and every morning before I enter the school. Big G was the first one that I seen. You can hear his name called over the loudspeaker. He was always an influence for us younger guys. You know what I'm saying? He was one of the ones that came out of the projects that was doing something that he loved. I think that I'm a player's coach, especially coming from this type of area or environment. We need those type of coaches here because we understand, you know, where these kids come from.
Get 2 in a row, Chris. Get 2 in a row. Come here, JJ. It's 0.
It's special because it's not only about basketball. I get to use this game, the orange basketball, to teach them the game of life.
Hey, Chris, I want you to take it out, all right?
Basketball can take you to many areas, can help you build many relationships.
Hey, on the fight of the ball, turn and run. You can't slide. You got to get there. Force baseline. Hey, good. Here we go. Rotate.
So I graduated from Yates. I graduated in 1999, so 95 to 99. I left Yates and went to Sam Houston State. I played there for 4 years. My mind was set that, hey, I'm going to be a professional basketball player. Nobody could tell me otherwise. So I played a total of 13 years. 13 years, and it was a great experience culturally. Build relationships with a lot of people from different countries, so it was definitely a great experience. And as I started getting older, went to college, I was going overseas. Like he would always, message me here and there, like, hey man, I see you. Like everybody in the hood, man, like we see what you're doing and we appreciate you, man. Keep going, cause the same way, y'all guys looked up to me. There's younger guys, looking up to you.
So we didn't need a 3. You passed the ball to Murph right here for
because I lost it and I had to.
So where you was going with it?
I was going to the ring.
Those possessions right there, we cannot turn the ball over. First we start off with offensive rebound, then we create a turnover and give it right back to him and get a shot.
Is that how you honor Big G's legacy? By being that person that people could look to?
Oh, for sure. For sure. And if one thing about Big G, man, if there was something that you had a passion for and you was doing it, he's gonna support you. And then he gonna always try to give you some positive information. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, you probably shouldn't move like that. Coming from his mistakes, hey man, I made that mistake. You might not want to do that, boss. I was shocked, in disbelief, because like I say, at the time, it was becoming normal, but then, like I mentioned, when he hit home like that, I'm looking at the video, I'm like, nah. It's not getting better, it's getting worse. I think it's like it's getting worse. It's getting worse. And it's sad. It's sad. And I don't have a solution or a plan, or I don't even know what we need to do to try to fix it. So those incidents, they'll bring back, those moments, but at the same time, I try to use those examples to relate to the kids that, hey, there are certain situations you can't get into. You're not gonna reach all of them, but if I can get 1 or 2 out of 10, then at least I can say I saved 1 or 2 of them. He's that positive person, but we know that because we know Big G, right? But the outsiders who don't know where he come from and just dwell on the mistakes that he's made, nobody's perfect. Like, we all make mistakes. So the people that don't know G, of course they're gonna have their own personal opinion. But at the end of the day, we know what it's about from, in the community where he come from. So, yeah, for sure.
Floyd's murder sparked athletes to get more active in protesting police brutality and social injustice. But we've seen this movie before. Activist and sociologist Dr. Harry Edwards has spent most of his life mapping this very topic. We look to him to provide some historical context.
It is inescapable, and in point of fact, the movements that have emerged because of developments in society, that athletes have hooked and hanged their efforts to change their sports stages into platforms. Those movements, those efforts, those developments were not just inevitable, they were predictable, and they are by no means over. This is a 158-year-long history of athletes' political activism, where outstanding athletes and sportsmen in the Black community have turned sports stages into political platforms.
After the break, we'll talk to a man who remembers teeing off at the first integrated golf course in the South. So much of the Black experience is breaking down doors that were previously closed to us. But when those doors open and we get a little bit of love, we're pulling up. Much like the Black people who came from all over to play at the famed Lions Golf Course in Austin. My guy Adam Rosso spoke to a man who remembers walking those greens back in the 50s.
The sounds of the past are still present at the place they call Muni.
It was fun though.
Where generations have teed it up for almost 100 years.
Well, those trees over there where the caddy shack used to be. When it rained, that was our only place to go. So everybody in there standing up like this.
A course where the game of golf led to something bigger.
Over the years of me playing golf here in Austin, my three best friends of my life I met right here on this golf course.
Volma Overton Jr. grew up on the city's east side. His dad introduced him to golf. Austin's future NAACP president also introduced his son to the reality of growing up in a segregated South.
Being a third-generation native Austinite, you know, I've been here through a whole lot of mess right here in Austin. We had rocks thrown at us, people spit on us, even shot guns at us. So that war, we had been in it many a time.
Discrimination that was woven into the fabric of a post-World War II American society.
There was this feeling after the war, what about us? What sense did it make in this country after their participation in that war?
A feeling that gained momentum in Austin after a Supreme Court decision desegregated the University of Texas Law School in 1950. Then Jim Crow defiance arrived at Muni. Elvin Props, a 9-year-old who caddied at Muni, and another Black friend made a bold move.
The big thing about the guys playing, it was caddies that decided, well, hell, we're going to play this golf course.
The two boys were detained until the mayor and city council members decided to let them play. 3 words that have been the mantra of Muni ever since.
There was a desire to deal with this as diplomatically and quietly as possible. Important because they did it without being told by a court to do it.
Lions Municipal officially became the first desegregated golf course in the South in early 1951.
I said, Daddy, where'd all these other people come from? And my dad said, well, son, looks like the word's gotten out. They come from Houston, they come from Dallas, they come from San Antonio, come from Fort Worth.
It was a destination for Black golfers across America, too. Even heavyweight champion boxer Joe Louis came to play Muni twice in 1951 and 1953.
There were a lot of Black guys on this golf course playing. After a while, I just saw so many people I didn't know, but it's just kind of happy to see all the other people on the golf course.
The impact of Muni's integration stretched far beyond the course. Other spaces around Austin, including the public library and a fire station, were also desegregated in the early 1950s.
It's really before the modern civil rights movement. It's before Rosa Parks. It's before all that.
Lions Municipal is now a state and national historic site. cementing the Muni's impact on American history because of a couple kids who just wanted to play golf.
The game of golf and the love that I have from other people that play the game is outstanding, and I'm just glad to be part of this history of this golf course, that I know I can go back and talk about times when we couldn't do things to now where it's just wide open.
There's a current effort to preserve the course forever. To make a donation, check out the address on your screen. I'm honored to share these stories with y'all because there are stories. And like most of us, I'm a product of Black history. For the longest time, I was being influenced by a legend and I didn't even know it. If you ever find yourself in Los Angeles, the name Booker Turner rings out in gyms across the city. But despite being one of the first Black referees in college basketball, I'm sure most of you have never heard of him. Papa rubbed shoulders with basketball giants, but he is a giant. His last national championship featured a young Hakeem Olajuwon and the Houston Cougars in 1984. There he was in complete control of a game with these titans of basketball lore in Olajuwon, Patrick Ewing, and John Thompson. He officiated 2 titles and 6 Final Fours and helped many Black referees reach the Division I and NBA levels. But more importantly, he was a great man, husband, father, and grandfather. That's why these stories have such a special place in my heart, because stories like my papa's deserve to be told even outside the month of February. But that's all the time we have for this very special edition of Beyond the Sport. I just want to thank everybody who helped bring this show to light, from our history makers to the folks behind the scenes, and y'all for tuning in. Now y'all know what it is. Be well and stay Black.